Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. What is going on, guys? It's time to talk some rucks. And look, I'll be real with you guys. It's 10:30 on a Saturday night. Shorty's had a couple of beverages. You know, you're getting a slightly intoxicated Shorty. But we got videos to pump out, and I'm on school camp from Wednesday to Friday. I've got my SuperCoach draft night on Tuesday night. I'm going live on Monday night, which is probably when this is posted. So if you're watching this right now, probably going to be live by like 7 o'clock or 7:45 on YouTube. So we've got the pinch happening with sort of time. We need to get some of these videos out. So look, Shorty rolled into a little bit of a barbecue, smashed some sausages, bit of chicken, had some potatoes. No salad for me, thanks. Not interested. Maybe an adult, but I'm not interested in your salad. Thank you. And then they just brought out, not long after lunch, this outrageous pile of desserts. And then all of a sudden I was like, why'd you go the extra snag, mate? You should have saved some fucking room for this peppermint slice and brownie. Nonetheless, I still launched into it. It was good stuff. And then the fire got going at night. It's quality stuff. But look, it was just a low-key one, just with some workmates, so it wasn't anything where we're kicking on too hard, hence I was home by about 9:30. And then we just, doom scrolled on TikTok for a little bit, one of my more hated activities, but I just had to zone out for a bit, and I thought, you know what, mate, you should probably at least record this Saturday night, edit it tomorrow, and then watch the full Sweat Hawthorn documentary for the rest of the night with a Milo, with probably 10 to 12 spoonfuls of Milo, which is the only way to do it, but nonetheless, let's get stuck into it. If you haven't watched these videos before, I try to cover all the relevant players on each line and what's relevant. I don't know, you tell me, but I think if they're in at least 3% of sides, sort of suggests to me that at least someone out there is thinking about them. And I like to have a bit of a one-stop shop for anyone to sort of be like, what does Shorty think about so-and-so? And I can just give you my 2 cents worth. It's sort of a good way just before the season to try and cover off on every player that you could possibly think of. So if you're interested in my thoughts, feel free to have a look through. But I'll have these videos time-stamped with the players because it can sometimes be a bit of a lengthier video. So yeah, feel free to just look through the description and find who you're looking for. But let's get stuck into it. Let's start with Max Gawn, who finds himself in 17% of sides. And I think a lot of people, as you can see there, are picking one of Xerri or Koning or Gawn. So I think that's probably the way people are approaching it. And probably Gawn, maybe he's being slightly disrespected, but huge year last year, 124. He just keeps on doing it. I suppose I kind of feel, and I kind of understand why he's not as popular, because, I mean, how long can he keep doing it for? I know he is just one of our most trusted premiums and does it year upon year, and he's played 20-plus games 4 years in a row, so it suggests the body is not a concern. But he is 33. He has shouldered the ruck load for so long. You just get the sense sort of like I was talking about maybe Lachie Neale in the midfield video. I think it was the midfield video. Anyway, Lachie Neale's sort of at the end, or getting towards the end of his prime premium window of scoring, where maybe a Will Day, certainly Nick Dacos, right at the start of that premium window. You could probably say that Xerri's at the start of his premium window and Gawn is coming to the end of it. So at some stage, Gawn will drop off and, he's probably likely to succumb to the stresses of shouldering that ruck load for so many years. Will it be this year? Got no idea. But at that price, $670, I would prefer to go others. And I know a few of you, clearly 17% of you are still saying, nah, back him in, mate. You can trust him. And which I can kind of understand. But I do think if I had to pick between the two, it would definitely be Tristan Xerri. And let's move straight on to him. I mean, he's in 55% of sides and he is an outstanding force. He's a dominant player, burst onto the scene last year. I mean, he is the type of breakout that we are always searching for. I mean, gee, what a dream it was last year. I'm sure there weren't too many that jumped on him. There was always a bit of hype that he could explode, but I don't think anyone would have thought to this level. I mean, to go to 72 to basically 120 is outrageous. So you'll pay a price for a bloke who's only done one premium season, but I think it's justified. He looked fantastic in the practice game, and there's no reason that he can't continue on doing some huge numbers. So, look, you'll certainly pay a price, but like we said just before, you feel like last year was just the start of a serious run of premium seasons for the number one ruckman at North Melbourne. Marshall's not in too many sides, as you understand, with the injury concerns over the pre-season, sort of racing the clock to be right for round one. Nankervis in 3% of teams. It's a no from me. I feel as if Nank is kind of a guy that I just feel like he is more of a high 90s, early 100s kind of operator. And that's probably just gut feel, because he did have an outstanding year last year. But, I mean, players do have these years where it's just a career bester. And I just don't feel like 110 is going to be his norm. I think last year was a fantastic year, but if we look over the course of his career, when he does have full seasons, it normally features in the mid to high 90s, maybe early 100s. So, I don't know, maybe you think that he's just having a hot streak towards the end of his career, and look, you could be right, but I feel like I'm happy to play with others and select other guys. Certainly feel like you're paying absolute top dollar for a guy that may not back it up. You know, I look at Xerri, 110 plus year, same as Nank. I think Cherry's the guy that's certainly going to continue it on with it all in front of him, where Nank, I feel like he'll probably drop back to more your 100 to 105. English is in 8% of sides, but got no real interest in this. He's had a bit of a sketchy pre-season. He's played, but he's also had a couple of niggles, and I don't know, I just sort of feel like he's a guy that, you know, he's had those head knocks, and, you know, particularly with Sam Darcy really on the verge of exploding, probably more as a forward, but I don't know, there's just something about the selection that's not as sexy as it once was. I mean, there was a time in his career where, gee, we loved him. You know, I think we probably thought he'd be someone we select for years and years. But he is a mobile ruck, but I think some super coaches out there are frustrating with the lack of physical presence he has and ability to have hit-outs to advantage. You know, 128 average not that long ago, but he has really started to struggle a bit with the body. And we saw, you know, at his best, you know, averaging 19 touches per game. He dropped that, you know, down by 3 last year, and we saw the hit-outs drop a bit. You know, everything just dropped a bit. So maybe there's 8% of you out there who feel like he can bounce back, but again, I'm happy to play around him. He's not one that I've been too interested in looking at for my side. Strolling on down to Darcy Cameron, who I'm actually surprised is in 4% of teams, because I feel like he is probably a guy that, around that price, is probably one of the better ones. And I could see him. I've warmed to him as the preseason's gone on. We don't want Alex Condon. We want Darcy Cameron. As the preseason's gone on, I've sort of warmed to him. You know, he's a sole ruck. Really found his best form. You know, 29 years old. So it's been a long time coming. But 105 average. But there was some affected games. Was there some sub-affected matches? I swear there was. Let's have a look at the time on ground here. I swear someone said there was a sub game in here. I mean, 61% here. Maybe that was it. Maybe they'd already made the sub. But what did he even score against the Lions there? Oh, yeah, so he had that 18. So I reckon, if my memory serves me correct, something's saying a bit of a head knock, perhaps. Can't remember, but he did play the next week. So I don't know. Maybe that 18 was just a stinker. I'm sure someone will be able to tell me otherwise in the comments. But yeah, big end of the season. I could see him jumping up to 110. If you forced me to put a number on it, I probably would say more 107, 108. I think he'll have another good year, but probably not quite to the levels of some of the other guys that we could select. So yeah, solid player. Not for me, but I get the hype. Lloyd Meek is one that is often grouped into that Cameron discussion. You know, I don't want to pay up for a Xerri, or I want to, you know, go someone different from Koning, which not many are, because look at that ownership from TDK. But if I was to go Cameron versus Meek, I would go Meek, and we got a bit of a look at him the other night against the Swans. Gee, he's a physical presence, Lloyd, and he certainly has really come on in leaps and bounds. He's the number one ruck for the Hawks quite clearly. And we spoke about English maybe not being a physical ruckman. Meek's the absolute opposite. He doesn't need a stack of the footy to score well, because he wins a lot of it in contested fashion, and he does have a lot of hit-outs and gets his hands dirty. And I think we like that in a ruckman. So again, not someone that I have gone with, because I have gone TDK. But if you did be like, hey, Shorty, Darcy Cameron or Lloyd Meek, which way would you go? I think Meek is a better chance to go 110 plus, but I'm not I'm not jumping at either of them, but I do understand why there's a bit of interest. I mean, Tom de Koning sort of speaks for himself. The hype is clear, and I think it's fair. Bit of discussion maybe a month or so ago about, Pitnet, he's sort of sharing the ruck, and there's a bit of combination in some practice games and match sim sort of deal. But now that Pitto is out for an extended period of time, I think it's at least the first 4 weeks, you're really hoping that, Tommy Boy can just start the season on fire and just give Carlton no reason at all to go any other combination than him being the clear number one ruck. And we saw this run, didn't we? When he started to really get going, I mean, it was outrageous. Like round 11 to round 17, just some ridiculous numbers. And even he ended up having an injury towards the end of the year that affected him. But he's historically been that guy who rucks a bit, very agile, but he's capable of playing forward, so they use him as a forward as well. But I know Curno's going to miss some of the season, but I think Pitnet being out offsets that, so they'll certainly have to play Tom de Koning in the ruck. But he's an absolute force on the ground. He can also win a few hitouts. He's probably, he can certainly win a few as we're seeing here in these numbers, but he's probably going to get more of his scoring from winning that clearance and his follow-up work on the ground, which he does fantastically well. And he's popular for a reason. He's my guy, or he's my number one guy in the ruck, and I think he'll be certainly in many people's combination, and I think it's very much fair enough. So, I think you can pick him with confidence. And then we go down to Luke Jackson, who it's a bit of deja vu for us in terms of Luke Jackson. Sean Darcy cops an injury in the pre-season. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, geez, do we jump on Jackson? But look, even it's a bit weird. Liam Reidy is sort of playing that number one ruck role in the most recent practice game, and Jackson's been used as sometimes a ruck, sometimes a mid, sometimes a forward. Like it's almost like, for SuperCoach anyway, he's a victim of his own versatility. Like I think how many roles he can play almost hurts him when it comes to us looking at selecting him in SuperCoach. But last year we saw the same thing, and I jumped on him. Darcy was out. I thought, yep, let's go bang. And he started the year really well. First couple of weeks were huge, then a couple of 90s. And then I believe Darcy's, I think he came back either round 5 or round 6. I think it was round 5. But then we were just left with this awkward decision of, it was good for a bit, but now we're going to have this issue for the whole year where Jackson's probably the second ruck, and we've got a guy who has to almost play key forward. And it was just awkward. Like it ebbed and flowed because Darcy, he does miss matches, but then Jackson never really got the continuity. He had some big games like this 154 when he did get those options. But I think there'll be a day where Luke Jackson is just a number one ruck at a club and he averages 115. I reckon those years will come, but at the moment, it's not going to be the case unless we were to hear that Darcy's out for like half the year or something. But then even then, like Longmuir was sort of using him in a bit of a unique way. So I'm very much happy to pass on him, but a few people are certainly considering. And then we get to Draper. Not for me. He's very much sharing the ruck with Bryan. I'd almost argue that Nick Bryan's probably going to start in the centre bounce first more often than not, and Draper forward. So, it's a straight up no from me. At that price, it just makes no sense. He really needs to up his average by like 20 points, 15 minimum, and I just don't see it happening. He's an exciting player, and he'll have his days, but I just don't think he's polished enough to be a guy that we consider in SuperCoach. And here probably is the big talking point, and really, aside from a couple of rookies, Matt Flynn is the huge talking point. And to be honest, I'm starting him. I'm going to start him. He's someone that he actually scored well against Xerri in the practice game. I thought he was soundly beaten, but he somehow found a way to score. And for me, it was just a matter of him at his price. I just think he offers too much if he's fit. Like, he's 260. Like, if we had a rookie who was at 260 who has averaged 3 times in the mid-80s, mid to high 80s, okay, it's a small sample size, but all I've been looking for in the preseason is the role. And he's got the role very convincingly too. Like, Bailey Williams was nowhere to be seen. He was playing forward. They actually had Archie Reid, I think it is, rucking in sort of to fill in when Flynn was off the ground. So I really do like Flynn's ability to just get you 12 or 14 possessions in a contested fashion, take a couple of contested marks around the ground, and he's actually quite a good hit-out player. So I think he's from memory, I think West Coast have an okay fixture, maybe an okay start to the year, because we really don't want too many of the big dogs in the first month, and clearly it's a huge risk. I know that. He could go down with a sore back like in the first couple of weeks and I'll look like an idiot, but I think at 260 I'm willing to take the risk. So we'll have Jared Witts, who's a pretty solid opponent, but not someone that destroys players all the time. Then he's got McInerney, good player, but not someone I'd consider a big dog. Then he'll have Reidy / Jackson, depending the way they look at it. I think that's a good matchup. Then he'll have his old team, the Giants, against Kieran Briggs, nothing too intimidating. Then he's got TDK. We've certainly pumped his tyres up. Then he's got Essendon, Draper and Bryan, nothing too scary. Then he's got Hawthorn, Lloyd Meek, got to respect. Gawn, got to respect. Nank, got to respect. So, look, there's a chance that we might not even need him after he plays these first 5, 6, 7 games. Like, by then, we hopefully have 3, 4 price rises out of him. Maybe he's the best part of 400k, and we can offload him depending who has sort of dropped back. But clearly, we'd love to see Xerri or whoever you don't start drop a little bit, and then maybe Flynn makes some cash and it's a nice exchange. Yeah, I'm probably a believer that set and forget Rucks is probably the safe play and probably the percentage play, but look, you got to take some risks somewhere, don't you? So I'm willing to take this risk. If I was probably playing for my life, I probably wouldn't start Flynn. I think clearly he's a risky type and makes me nervous with that back. I could see him getting subbed off with back soreness and not getting up for the next week. I could definitely see it, but I do feel like the risk or the reward is just outweighing the risk, just enough. He just convinced me in that last practice game. So let's roll the dice on this one. I think he's probably a good flex player because it gives you a bit of a cushion. R2 potentially risky, but hey, I'm feeling risky this year, so we're going to take a bit of a punt there. But would love to hear your thoughts on Matty Flynn for sure. And then I think we'll probably just round it out with just a brief rookie chat. We don't really talk rookies much when I talk about this, but Reidy, 7%, we've touched on him. Probably will be the number one ruck for a bit, or at least get an opportunity in there. But no, it's a no from me. I think Darcy, from what I'm hearing, is going to be back in the first month, give or take. And as soon as he's back, Reidy's gone. So best case scenario, you might get 3 price rises out of him. You might make 120, 130k. I mean, the worst case scenario is that it doesn't quite pan out and he doesn't even get to 3 or 4 games, and you might only make 40k, 50k off him. So, yeah, not enough interest or opportunity for him there. And then we're probably going to see Archie Reid bob up somewhere, I would imagine. There he is. I would probably much prefer him to Reidy, playing second ruck, to Flynn. Actually looks quite athletic and mobile and was kind of exciting. Think he'll get a fair crack at it. Again, let's just wait and see what the teams do. Sims, I don't really know much about him. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a game. Played a little bit in the pracky, but yeah, it's a no from me. And then, of course, Boyd is the rage. He's in 59% and Reid's in 6%. I think they're about a 50-50 as to who we start. Boyd's a little bit cheaper and 20k can go a long way at this stage of the season. And I think with Marshall's injury concerns, it's got Boyd, who has had some insane sample numbers, and I think St Kilda have a bit of a want to support Marshall in the ruck and sometimes play him forward. So, yeah, I think there's a world where Boyd makes us a bit of a cash. I also think there's a world where he plays 2 games for the year. So it'll be very interesting to see, but it's also not a disaster if he just sits on our R3 bench. It becomes a bit of a donut for us to use in the VC loophole. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Saints do line up and how they approach it. But yeah, I think Marshall will be back. He should be right for round 1, they reckon. If not, certainly in the first couple. So it's not like Boyd's going to get a real good run at it. But I wonder if they'll approach it with a bit of a sharing option and how the Saints attack their ruck lineup. But yeah, certainly most people, as you can see, have him slotted in at R3 for 99k. So there is my discussion points of everyone who I feel is relevant in the ruck department. Feel free to chuck any comments in if you reckon I missed someone or someone deserved a bit more of a chat than I gave them. And yeah, also comment your starting rucks, because it is often a bit of a talking point as to how people do approach the rucks structure-wise. I'm going one premium, one mid-pricer. Most probably going set and forget. So it'll be interesting to see which way pays off in that regard. But yeah, thanks for your time. I'll be back with probably the Fords next, I think. But yeah, we'll chat soon anyway. Cheers.